Something interesting is happening in the US economy right now, and it's not coming from politicians or Wall Street analysts. It's coming from places people walk into every week without thinking twice, stores like Walmart and Home Depot. And when companies this big start saying the same kind of thing, it usually means the signal is no longer hidden in the background. It's out in the open. So, what exactly are they warning about, and why should everyday people care? Let's break it down in a simple way. Over the past period, major US retailers have been quietly flagging something that doesn't feel dramatic on the surface, but is very important underneath. Consumers are becoming more careful with how they spend. Not stopping spending completely, not a collapse, but a noticeable shift in behavior. People are still buying essentials. They are still fixing their homes. They are still shopping. But the pattern has changed. Instead of upgrading, they are delaying. Instead of buying more, they are buying only what is necessary. Instead of big projects, they are choosing smaller ones. And that shift tells a deeper story about the economy. Think about Home Depot for a moment. It's closely tied to housing activity, renovations, DIY spending, and big household projects. When homeowners feel confident, when income is stable, when borrowing feels manageable, they remodel kitchens, upgrade bathrooms, or start long-delayed home improvements. But when uncertainty creeps in, those projects are often the first thing to get postponed. Not canceled, just pushed forward into the future. Now Walmart sits on the other side of the same picture. It reflects everyday consumer life, groceries, household items, basic necessities. If Walmart starts noticing customers trading down, choosing cheaper brands, buying fewer items, stretching budgets further, it's a signal that household pressure is increasing. And when both a home improvement giant and a mass retail giant start describing similar patterns, it's worth paying attention because they are watching the real economy in real time. Not forecasts, not theory, actual checkout behavior. So, what are they essentially warning about? It comes down to a few key pressures building at the same time. First, inflation hasn't disappeared in the way people expected. Even when headline numbers stabilize, the accumulated effect of higher prices is still sitting in household budgets. Things simply cost more than they used to, and wages haven't always fully caught up. That creates a silent squeeze. People adjust slowly. They don't feel it all at once. But over time, the flexibility in their spending disappears. Second, interest rates have been high compared to recent history. That matters more than it seems at first glance. When borrowing becomes expensive, credit cards, mortgages, home improvement loans, big purchases naturally slow down. A kitchen remodel that once felt manageable suddenly becomes a maybe next year decision. A car upgrade becomes something to postpone. Even small financing decisions feel heavier. Third, there's the psychological layer. Confidence. Economies are not just numbers. They are also expectations. When people feel uncertain about the future, job stability, cost of living, global events, they tend to become more cautious even before their income changes. And that caution spreads across millions of households at the same time. This is where the warning from big retailers becomes important. They are not just reporting lower sales in isolation. They are describing a pattern of behavior that suggests consumers are entering a more defensive mode. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Because this doesn't automatically mean a crisis. That's not the correct conclusion. What it often signals is a transition phase in the economy. Think of it like a household adjusting its budget after a long period of higher expenses. You don't stop living. You just become more intentional. You cut unnecessary spending. You delay upgrades. You prioritize essentials. The economy does something similar at scale, but there's a catch. When millions of people make small spending adjustments at the same time, the effect becomes visible in corporate earnings, retail performance, and broader economic growth. And that's where companies like Walmart and Home Depot become early indicators. They sit right at the intersection of consumer behavior and economic reality. Now let's connect this to something most people feel but don't always articulate. Have you noticed how people are still busy, but more selective? Restaurants still have customers, but people might order less. Stores still have traffic, but baskets feel lighter. Home projects still happen, but they are more budget conscious. That is what economists often call selective spending behavior. It doesn't look like a collapse. It looks like caution. And caution, when widespread, slows down momentum. Because economic growth is not just about whether people are spending, it's about how freely they are spending. Now, Home Depot's perspective is especially tied to housing. When homeowners are uncertain, the housing related economy slows in very visible ways. Renovation projects get delayed. Contractors see fewer large jobs. Suppliers feel the slowdown downstream. It's like ripples across an entire ecosystem. Walmart's perspective, on the other hand, reflects the pressure on everyday essentials. When even grocery budgets are being adjusted, when consumers are switching to lower cost alternatives, that tells you household finances are being carefully managed. Not in panic, but in discipline. And discipline, when spread across millions of households, reshapes demand. So, what does all of this mean for the broader US economy? It suggests a period where growth may not disappear, but could become uneven and slower. Some sectors continue doing well, others cool down, and companies become more focused on efficiency rather than expansion. There is also a potential ripple effect into hiring decisions, inventory planning, and investment strategies. Because businesses don't just respond to current sales, they respond to expectations of future sales. And when expectations become cautious, decisions follow. But here's an important perspective shift. These kinds of warnings are not unusual in economic cycles. In fact, they often appear before broader adjustments in the economy fully show up in official data. Retailers see changes early because they are closest to consumer behavior. They don't rely on models, they rely on receipts. Now, what should the average person take from all this? Not fear, not panic, awareness. Because what's happening at the retail level is really a reflection of how households are adapting to a more expensive and uncertain environment. And in many ways, adaptation is a normal part of economic life. People adjust, businesses adjust, the system finds a new balance. But during that adjustment phase, things can feel uneven. Some months feel stable, others feel tight. Some sectors grow, others slow down. And that mix can create confusion if you're only looking at one piece of the picture. That's why signals from companies like Walmart and Home Depot matter. They give a more grounded view of what real spending behavior looks like outside of headlines. So, where does this likely go from here? Economies often move in cycles of expansion, cooling, adjustment, and stabilization. The current signals suggest we may be in a cooling to adjustment phase rather than a dramatic downturn. That means consumer behavior is becoming more cautious, businesses are becoming more strategic, and growth is recalibrating rather than disappearing. The key variable going forward will be confidence. If households begin to feel more secure in income stability and pricing trends, spending tends to normalize again. If uncertainty persists, caution continues. And that balance will shape how retail, housing, and services perform in the coming period. So when you hear that Walmart and Home Depot are issuing warnings, it's not necessarily about crisis. It's about reading the temperature of the economy through the most honest lens available. What people are actually buying, delaying, or changing. And right now, that lens is showing a consumer base that is careful, strategic, and highly aware of cost. Not frozen, just thinking twice. And in economic terms, that thinking twice is often where the real story begins.